Welcome to the Midwest Motogirl podcast, where we'll dive into all aspects of building a badass life around motorcycles, mindset, and overall female betterment. Get ready to explore how your mindset can make or break your experience and enjoyment in the male-dominated world of motorcycles. Welcome back to the Midwest Motogirl podcast. I'm your host, Sydney Gard. Thank you for being here today and listening to this episode. If you have listened to any of my previous episodes, thank you. If you're new here, well, welcome. Today, I'm going to talk about some of the things that I wish somebody would have explained to me better or told me when I was a new rider. And if you are a new rider, this episode is probably going to be great for you, and I hope that you learn a lot. If you're a more experienced rider, I'm guessing that you probably already know all of these things, but you can still listen along and laugh at my stupidity. So there's a lot of things that I wish somebody would have told me when I first started riding. And I think that nobody told me this because I grew up around motorcycles, so they just assumed that I knew some of these things. And I had been riding like a 150cc motor scooter when I was in high school. So my family had this motorcycle dealership. We had Triumph motorcycles, and we also had Kimco scooters. And so my dad had one of the Kimco scooters that was a demo, and he ended up buying it from the dealer, and that was like his commuter. And so he had ended up teaching me how to ride that motor scooter in a parking lot when I was like 14 or 15, and then kind of throughout the rest of high school, he would let me ride like little short trips around town instead of driving me there himself. And after I graduated high school, we went on a couple of poker rides, and I rode the scooter because he thought, well, she's fine on the scooter. She knows how to ride it. There's not a clutch. There's not the risk of a full motorcycle, blah, 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 blah. And so I think he just assumed that there was a bunch of things about motorcycle riding that I'd already learned from this scooter, and I hadn't. But because it was a scooter, it was really lightweight. It sat low to the ground. It wasn't very fast. I didn't feel like I needed most of these skills. And I was just doing like little short trips around town. I wasn't doing any sort of like highway driving or interstate or cruising, like no long trips, nothing like that. So like just like the bare bones basic, like how to stop. And a motor scooter, they're automatic. So they have 2 handbrakes. There's no clutch. There's no foot controls. And so yeah, I just knew like bare bones basics. So my first motorcycle was a Triumph Daytona 675, and I talked about it in one of my previous episodes where I wrecked it just a couple of months after owning it. I think I got it in maybe like June, and in October, me and my dad went on this motorcycle trip down to Arkansas, and I wrecked on the first day of our motorcycle trip. Kind of ruined the trip. I wrecked, probably in the afternoon. We really didn't do a whole lot of riding. We had maybe ridden for an hour or two that day, and then our trip was over. And so we're going to get into the details of that. But I basically committed all of the rookie mistakes in the book, and that's what caused me to crash. And at the time, I didn't realize I was doing anything wrong. I just legitimately didn't know. And so we're riding in Arkansas. We're just south of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, and it's kind of like a mountainous area. There's a lot of like twisty, windy roads. There's a lot of motorcycles that go down there for trips, specifically for the curvy highways. And so we're going down this highway. It's like a big downhill. There's kind of like a mountain feature off to our right, and you go down the hill and around kind of the base of the mountain, and the road turns right, and then you come back up a hill. And as I'm in third gear, and as I'm going down this hill, I am getting nervous because I feel like I'm going too fast. And at the time, I didn't know that you don't need to use the clutch every time you use the brakes. So I'm going down this hill, I'm getting nervous, and I start thinking to myself, how do I slow down? What do I do? And like I said, you go around, like down this hill and around the corner up to the right. It's a blind corner around the base of this mountain. And then there's a big drop off on the left side of the road. There's no shoulder on the left side. The roadway basically just drops away. And so I'm seeing that where the roadway drops away, and I'm going, oh no, this is bad. I'm going too fast. I'm not going to make the corner. I don't know what to do. And I was scared to pull the clutch in because I thought that I would just coast down the hill. I would speed up. And I didn't want that to happen. I wanted as much engine braking as I could. So I'm looking for an exit strategy. And I see that before you get to the base of the hill, there's this kind of like weird T intersection off to the left with like a little small island, so that people off the intersecting highway can either go get on the highway and go the direction that I was going, or they can get on the highway I was on and go the opposite direction. And it was like some kind of triangular traffic flow intersection, weird kind of intersection. But anyways, I'm looking for an exit strategy, and I see this intersection off to the left, and I'm going, okay, well, I don't think I can make this right-hand corner. I'm going too fast, but I should be able to make this left-hand corner. And I can pull the clutch in, and I can brake pretty hard, make this left-hand corner, and then I'll be good to go. And so that's what I did. And I thought, well, I'll just turn around, make a U-turn, turn left, make a U-turn, and then get back on the highway and go up the hill the direction that my dad went. And my dad had gotten out in front of me quite a ways, and I couldn't see him anymore. I'm assuming that he went around the mountain. Normally, he would stop when he got ahead of me. If we were going to turn, he would stop at the intersection somewhere so I knew which way we were turning. And he wasn't at this intersection, so I thought, well, yep, I'll just turn left and make this U-turn. Well, so I turn left. I have the clutch in. I'm on the front brake. I'm slowing down. And I'm going around the corner with the clutch in, mind you. And I hit some gravel, and the bike low sides and just comes right out from underneath me. I shouldn't say flying, but I did kind of fly a little bit, and then I slide. And my bike goes sliding in the opposite direction. My bike slides into the island, and it wore a hole through the case cover and dumped oil all over the place. So there was the end of our motorcycle trip. But after I came back, I was explaining to a couple of my friends who also rode motorcycles about how I crashed, and they just weren't getting it. They didn't understand how that situation happened. And they're like, everybody, including myself, we just chalked it up to there was sand and gravel in the road. I lost traction, and I was not going very fast when I hit this sand and the gravel, like maybe 15, 20 miles an hour tops. So it seemed very weird that the bike just slid out the way that it did. But the suspension was probably unloaded, and I had the clutch in, so I was just coasting at that point. There's no power, there's no nothing. And everybody just kind of thought that it was really weird. But these two friends that I have, I'm explaining it to them. They're not getting it. They're just saying, okay, whatever. You crashed in the gravel. It happens sometimes. Like, that's just part of riding. And then they start talking about counter steering a little bit later in this conversation. And I'm going, well, what the heck does that mean? And I asked him a question. And the one guy looks at me and he goes, what do you mean, what's counter steering? And I'll get into counter steering here in a second. But then it clicked with him that there was all of these basic riding skills that I didn't know about. So he goes, well, you need to watch this movie about motorcycle riding. And it was called Twist of the Wrist. It was put on by Keith Code, who was an instructor at the California Superbike School back in like the 80s or maybe the early 90s. And so that afternoon, we ended up watching that movie. And as we're going through the movie, and there's all of these different critical errors that cause crashing. And I keep pausing the movie and asking questions. But they kept kind of like looking at me like, what do you mean you don't understand? And like, I'm trying to get them to explain things. And as we're talking about some of this, I finally said, I go, well, how do you do that? Because you have to use the clutch every time you use the brake. And they both kind of looked at me and went, what? And I go, well, yeah, it's a manual transmission. Every time you use the brakes, you have to use the clutch. And they both kind of just like looked at each other and were like, we don't even know what to say right now. Because at that point in time, I had no idea that you could use the brakes without the clutch. It sounds silly, but I had no idea. I had been driving a manual transmission car for a few years at that point, and when my dad taught me how to drive a stick shift, he always said, use the clutch anytime you use the brake or anytime you need to shift. And after I had gotten better at driving a stick shift, well, then he said, okay, you don't need to use the clutch every time that you brake. If you're just tapping on the brakes, you don't need the clutch. But any sort of like hard braking or shifting gears or coming to a complete stop, you need to use the clutch. So I'm on this motorcycle thinking that the same thing applies. And I'm thinking, well, if I'm going to just do more than tap my brakes a little bit, I need to use the clutch. So I'm street riding for 3 or 4 months. And literally every time that I wanted to touch the brakes, I pulled the clutch in. And I just did not understand. I was like, how are people going around corners so fast? And every time I was going around the corner, I was slowing down with my brakes, so the clutch was pulled in, which meant I was going around the corner with my clutch pulled in, thinking that I didn't have enough time to let the clutch out before I made the corner. And that sounds crazy, but I had no idea. This scooter I had been riding didn't have a clutch. This pickup truck with a stick shift in it, I was able to go around corners with my foot on the clutch in that, and I didn't have any sort of issues. But on the motorcycle, going around the corner with the clutch pulled in, the motorcycle wasn't able to do what it was supposed to do as far as like geometry and suspension and all of that. That was like number one rookie mistake. So if you don't know that, please remember this. Just like visualize it in your brain, visualizing me going around corners with the clutch pulled in, visualize me crashing with the clutch pulled in if that's what you need to do. You do not need to pull the clutch in every time you use the brakes. You only need to use the clutch if you are shifting, assuming you don't have a quick shifter. So if you're shifting, if you're coming to a complete stop, those are the only times you need to use the clutch. Please remember that. Huge mistake that I made. And like I said, I rode for months like that with no idea. And while I'm riding during those months, I'm generating all these other bad habits because of it. Rookie mistake number 2. I did not know what counter steering was. So I was riding a sport bike, and sport bikes have clip-on handlebars. They have a pretty aggressive riding position. You don't have to put a lot of inputs into the handlebars to get the bike to turn. And I ran Michelin tires. I still run Michelin tires most of the time on my sport bikes. Michelins have a very high profile. You could just basically give very small inputs and the bike would want to lean. And I had no idea what counter steering was. And if you're not familiar with counter steering, basically it's where you're putting opposite inputs into the handlebars than the direction you want to turn. So if you want to make a right-hand turn, you're going to push the handlebars left a little bit. If you want to make a left-hand turn, you're going to push the handlebars right a little bit. And the way the geometry on a sport bike works, that those steering inputs naturally make the bike want to lean in the opposite direction. And if you have a sport bike and you're not familiar with that, just sit on your bike with your feet on the ground and give it those little inputs and kind of notice how the bike leans or how it wants to lean. I had been riding around with the clutch pulled in, going around corners. My bike was not leaning very well. I was going around corners with the bike straight up, which is a big reason on why I could not keep up with my friends. They're going around corners at 25, 30 miles an hour. I'm going around corners at 10 or 15 miles an hour because the bike is upright the entire time. I was not leaning at all. And I was not using any kind of counter steering. So if I wanted to turn right, I was pushing on the right handlebar and the bike's wanting to turn the opposite way. So then to try and overcome that, I'm trying to lean my body, and it was just a whole mess of things going on. If you need more information on counter steering or you want more information on counter steering, I like to watch Ken Hill Coaching. He is a motorcycle instructor. He has a podcast. He has YouTube videos. But you can go to YouTube and try to find some articles or some videos from Ken Hill about countersteering, and he'll kind of break it down. The Yamaha Champion School, they also talk about geometry and countersteering in the early parts of that program. And with the Yamaha Champion School, they have an online version as well. So you can pay $50 and you can take their online course, and it's videos with like exercises that you can do on your own in your driveway, on the street, with your motorcycle to try and practice some of the techniques that they're talking about. So that was rookie mistake number 2, or number 2 thing that I wish somebody would have explained to me, countersteering. Rookie mistake number 3, object fixation. So I did not know what object fixation was, and I am watching this video with my friends, the twist of the wrist video, and they're talking about object fixation. And I was like, well, what do they mean? What do they mean? And object fixation is where instead of looking where you want to go or looking through the corner, you're focused on where you don't want to go. So in the case of my first accident, or I guess my only wreck on a motorcycle, we're in Arkansas. I'm seeing this basically cliff at the end of the road, and I'm fixating on that cliff and getting nervous and getting more nervous. And instead of looking through the corner, I probably could have made that corner. Actually, I know I could have made that corner. I was only going 30 or 40 miles an hour, and it was a big right-hand sweeper corner. If I would have just looked and followed the road, I 100% could have made that corner. I just got scared because I was focusing on the big drop-off on the other side of the road. And then once I had made my exit strategy and said I want to turn left and go through this weird intersection, I saw gravel in the intersection when I made my turn. And I was focused on that gravel. I was so focused on not hitting that gravel that I rode right through it and low-sided. And you'll always hear, look where you want to go. And I had been told, look where you want to go, but I didn't completely understand what that meant. And it sounds simple. It sounds like a very simple concept. And it is, if you can do it, if you practice it. And so I thought by looking where I wanted to go, if I looked at that gravel, that it would keep me from riding through the gravel. Wrong. You're going to go wherever your eyesight is focused on. And my eyesight was so focused on not hitting the gravel, I just rode right through it. And that's a big thing that they talk about when you go to the track. During the riders meeting in the morning, they always talk about, if you feel like you're in too hot in a corner and you don't think you can make it, turn your head. Turn your head the way that the corner is. So like if it's a right-hand corner and you get nervous that you're in too hot, instead of looking off into the grass, just physically turn your head and look right to look through that corner, and it will naturally pull your body and the bike to the right so that you can make that corner. And so object fixation and looking where you want to go kind of go hand in hand, because if you're looking where you want to go, you're not object fixating. If you are object fixating, you're not looking where you want to go. And so like I said, they go hand in hand. And object fixation is one of the most common things that causes people to crash. There's a lot of incidents, even in a car, where object fixation can cause a crash. If you're riding your motorcycle, say in traffic in the city, and there's a car in front of you, you can get so focused on that car in front of you that you're not paying attention to what's going on around you anymore. And maybe there's an accident up ahead and there's flashing lights, and you're so focused on the taillights of that car that you're not seeing that traffic all around you is stopping, or that there's a lane that's ending, or you're not even seeing the lights from the emergency vehicles through that car in front of you. And so that's where accidents happen. That's where you can end up rear-ending somebody. That's where you can hit something that you know you don't want to hit. If there's road debris, you're focused on the road debris instead of riding around it. You end up riding straight through it. One example is a turtle on the racetrack. The racetrack that I go to regularly is in Hastings, Nebraska, and there's kind of a creek, not right on, it's not on the property, but it's kind of nearby off the property, just to the south a little bit, I believe. And there has been occasions where we have had turtles crossing the track, and you see a turtle, and you're like, oh God, I don't want to hit that turtle. I don't want to hit that turtle. You're looking at the turtle instead of looking where you want to go, and then you end up riding right over it. So that's object fixation and looking where you want to go. One of the other things that I wish somebody would have told me or explained to me a little bit more was keeping my eyes up. And keeping your eyes up, that also goes along with look where you want to go. When you're in driver's ed with driving your car, I remember them teaching me that you should always be scanning. And you should look out basically 5 feet in front of the hood of your car, and then look out 2 or 3 seconds, and then look out 2 or 3 seconds more. And one of the things that they also talk to you about with motorcycle riding in the motorcycle safety class is that the faster you're traveling or the faster that you're riding, the farther out ahead that you need to look. And that's really hard to do when you're looking at the ground. And overall, when I was first starting out riding, I was pretty good at looking out ahead of me unless I was going slow. If I was at slow speeds, whether I was making a corner or if I was riding, say, in a parking lot or trying to make a U-turn or anything like that, my first inclination was to look directly at the ground. I would look exactly where I wanted to go. And that is a habit that is, even today, I still get caught back up in, where I'm looking down instead of looking out and up and out. And I've experienced that on the racetrack a ton. But if you're looking down at the ground, it makes the bike feel very unstable at slow speeds, or at least that's the way that I would describe it. And so if you're going around a corner and you're looking at the ground, your bike is going to feel unstable, and it's going to be nerve-wracking, make you feel uncomfortable. However, if you're going around a corner and before you enter that corner, you've already scanned the corner for debris in the road, and then you're looking up past the corner out to the stop sign that's a block down the road, it's going to naturally pull you through the corner, and the bike will feel a lot more stable. I wish that I understood geometry of motorcycles and suspension more to be able to explain this to you better. But please just trust me that look up and out where you want to go. That really goes along with when somebody says look through the corner. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about keeping your eyes up. Don't look down at what's directly underneath you or what's directly in front of you. Look up, through the corner, past the corner. And some of the way that you do that is by physically turning your head. And this is something that you can practice when you're driving your car. So a lot of times when I'm driving my car, if I'm making a left-hand corner, I will actually turn my head and look out my passenger side window to look through the corner. So that's something you can practice all the time on your way to work. Doesn't matter if you're riding your motorcycle, driving your car, but it will make your bike feel more stable. It will help prevent object fixation if there is gravel or debris in the corner. And overall, it's going to feel a lot more comfortable. Again, I wish that I could explain that a little bit better, but it's taken me a long time to learn that. And even my first race season, I did vintage road racing. And so I was riding a 1973 Honda, and that bike just felt uncomfortable. And I think part of the reason that it felt uncomfortable was because the tank is really long and narrow on that bike. So my torso was kind of stretched out pretty far to reach the handlebars. And then the foot pegs are kind of farther back. Normally, that bike would have like an upright standard riding position. So your feet would be like right underneath your hips, kind of like in the place that you would want them to be. But for racing, you put on, it's called a Clubman style bar. And it is a straight continuous bar that mounts in the same way that a standard handlebar was, but it's shaped more like a clip-on handlebar. So you end up with that forward riding position that you want for racing. And that bike was very uncomfortable. And so at low speeds, I would feel wobbly and uncomfortable. And I remember the grid marshal. So when you first go out on the track, you stop at like the hot pit lane, and there's a grid marshal there that's kind of running the gate, and they listen for the signal when the track is clear and it's safe for you to go out for your warm-up lap. And the lady that was the grid marshal for the track day or the race organization my first year, she would always see that my eyes were looking directly at the ground and they were looking right in front of my front wheel. And she would tell me as I was going out to race, eyes up, keep your eyes up, look up, look up. And I'm really thankful that she was there and that she did that, because I would feel unstable and wobbly, uncomfortable on that bike. And as soon as I looked up, then I would feel better. And because the bike instantly felt better and I knew where I was going, I was able to accelerate smoothly. Um, I don't I don't understand why it works that way, but please just trust me and believe that riding will feel a lot more comfortable if you look up and if you look out. And you have to look up and out if you're going to look through the corner. And you have to do those things if you want to prevent object fixation. That's, I guess, number 4, number 5, whatever number we're on, about things that I wish somebody would have told me. The next thing that I wish somebody would have explained to me when I was a new rider was the technique to use your legs to help support yourself when you're on your bike. So this is very sport bike specific, where there's a forward riding position. And the way that the tank is shaped, it's shaped so that you can lock your leg into the tank when you're racing and you're hanging off the edge of the bike. I wish that somebody would have explained like that you can use your legs to grip onto the tank and help you help support your core and your upper body, so that all of your weight isn't going forward onto the handlebars. When I was a new rider, I didn't know that. And I didn't know that you could use your core, like flex your core muscles to help support your upper body as well. And so I'm in this aggressive forward riding position on this Daytona 675. And my wrists are getting tired as we're riding, and my arms are getting tired as we're riding. And it's because all of my weight was on my wrists and my arms instead of using the stronger parts of my body, like my legs and my core, to actually support me. And so, especially with with braking, if you're coming to a stop fairly quickly and you're using your front brake, that's where you can squeeze the tank with your legs to help support your upper body. And then you don't end up with all this momentum and all this weight going forward onto your wrists and into your hands and your forearms. So that's one that I wish that somebody would have kind of explained right away when I started riding. I did learn that fairly quickly, but I had been riding, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, maybe even a little bit longer than that when somebody finally explained that to me, and I was like, oh gosh, this is way easier to ride when I do this. I don't get tired nearly as quickly. And the last thing that I want to talk about that I wish somebody would have explained or told me a little bit was to stay relaxed. My first inclination when I got nervous was basically to hold on to the handlebars tighter. So think about me going around the corner with the clutch in. My bike is standing straight up. I'm looking at the ground as I'm going through the corner. I'm seeing all the gravel and the road debris that's in a corner, and I'm getting nervous. So my first inclination is to just squeeze the handlebars tighter. And that makes the situation even worse, because then you're putting all of these extra inputs into the bike that you don't realize you're putting in because you're squeezing the handlebars so tight. And especially when you get into cornering at faster speeds, or if you're doing track riding, as you're going around a corner at a higher speed, you kind of start to get nervous, or at least I would start to get nervous. And so then I'm gripping, and when you're going around a corner, you want your upper body to be loose, and you're just putting very slight, gentle inputs into the motorcycle. You're looking where you want to go, and the bike is naturally going to want to turn. But when you start gripping the bike doesn't want to naturally turn anymore. I was gripping so hard that my triceps were starting to get tired. And basically my triceps are holding me in an upright position on the bike, and I've got all this force on my wrist. My triceps are working really hard, and I'm like, gosh, why am I tired after 30 minutes of riding? Especially track riding. And I had so many people come up to me and tell me, "Hey, you need to loosen up. You're way too tense. You're way too tense. Like, have some fun with it." And I was like, "Well, I am having fun." And they're like, "Well, you're tense. Like, loosen up your upper body, loosen up your arms, and the bike will turn a lot easier." And as I've tried to practice that, especially at the track, I've been trying to practice that for a few years now. And sometimes I just have to slow down. To be able to loosen up, I have to slow down. And once you loosen up, it gets so much easier. Cornering faster, it just gets easier. The bike is able to do what it needs to do. It's able to turn, its geometry is able to work, its suspension is able to work, when you're not forcing inputs by just having a death grip on the handlebars. And when you have a death grip on the handlebars, you're also playing with the throttle a little bit, and you may not even be realizing it. So stay loose, use your legs to hold onto the tank, use your core to help hold you upright, and you'll be able to ride forever. Your butt's going to get tired before any of the rest of your muscles are. One of the last things that I wish somebody would have told me when I was not even a new rider, at this point I had been riding probably about 4 years, and I was doing track days and I was also street riding. And somebody that I rode with at the track had told me that I should be up on the balls of my feet, and that all of my weight should be on the ball of my foot so that I can put inputs into the motorcycle with my legs, and to help turn. And so I took that advice and I ran with it, and did not fully understand what it meant. And I wish that I would have asked some questions and got some clarification if that was a technique for street riding or if that was a technique for track riding. And the reason that I say I wish I would have asked is because I ran with that advice. And so I started putting all of my weight on the balls of my feet while I was street riding. And as I was doing that, I was barely sitting on the seat. Most of my body weight was going through my legs and through the foot pegs, rather than me actually sitting on the seat with my butt and having my legs on the foot pegs for support. And so as I was riding, my feet started to fall asleep. I could be on a 30-minute commute to work, and my feet would start getting tingly and would start falling asleep. And I didn't understand why. And then I went on a motorcycle trip, and I rode 350 miles the first day like that. My feet were asleep. I could not feel my feet. And we stopped at a couple of gas stations that day. And I kept stretching my calves, and saying, like, my feet keep falling asleep. My calves feel tight. My feet feel weird. I don't know what's going on. And I thought maybe I was just stiff because I wasn't used to being on a sport bike for that long. And then the next day when I woke up and got out of bed, I stepped out of bed and I just fell flat on my face. Basically what I had done, my feet were falling asleep because the muscles in my calves were working so hard to support my body weight rather than using the seat to support my body weight, that the muscles were swelling. And over that 350-mile day, the muscles in my calves swelled to the point that they started compressing nerves in my legs. And so that's what was happening when my feet were falling asleep, is that the nerves in my legs were starting to be compressed, but then I would get off my motorcycle quickly enough, or I would straighten out my leg or whatever, that I could get some blood flowing through those muscles, and the muscles would kind of relax and give the nerves some breathing room. Well, on that 350-mile day, that didn't happen. So I just kept working those calf muscles, kept working the calf muscles, and they swelled to the point that, like I said, it compressed the nerve in my leg. I ended up with, they call it drop foot, and a condition where you don't have any muscle movement in your foot or your ankle. So normally if you're, say you're just sitting down with your legs pressed out in front of you, you can move your feet and your ankles forward and back, and the muscles control all of that. I had no muscle control there. And basically it was like my foot didn't work anymore. I could walk on it, but it just kind of hung there. I didn't have any control. And I ended up doing physical therapy for 8 weeks to get function back in those nerves. Ended up making a full recovery. But when I was talking to the physical therapist about what happened, he was like, okay, well, we need to figure out what's going on here, because if this is happening on your motorcycle, you can't ride a motorcycle anymore. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, I don't want to stop riding a motorcycle. Like, there has to be another option. And a friend of mine had, I was telling them what was happening. I was telling them what the physical therapist was saying. And he started asking questions. And then that's where we figured out this root cause of, you need to sit on the seat. So that's a difference between track riding and street riding. If you're street riding, yes, you can be up on the balls of your foot. You can be in the arch of your foot. Being up on the balls of your foot gives you a little bit more versatility to move your feet on the pegs as you need to. But your foot pegs are just there for support. Sit on the seat. Use the seat to support your body weight so that your legs aren't doing it for you. You're going to get really tired really fast if that's what you're doing. Thank you for joining me tonight. If you are a new rider, I hope that some of these tips and stories about my experiences will help you be a better rider and help you avoid some of these mistakes. If you are a more experienced rider and you already knew these things, well, I hope you got a laugh out of my rookie riding mistakes that I made when I first started out. But to recap, 1, you don't need to use the clutch when you use the brakes. You only need the clutch when you are coming to a complete stop or you're shifting. Number 2, counter steering. Basically, push on the handlebar the opposite direction that you want to turn. Number 3, object fixation. And keep your eyes up. So keep your eyes up, look through the corner. If there's something in the road that you want to avoid, don't look at that. Look anywhere else except that. If you're in traffic, look through the car in front of you, not at the car in front of you. Object fixation is one of the number 1 reasons that people crash. So try to avoid that as much as you can. Keep it in your brain to look through whatever is in front of you, whether it's a car, it's a motorcycle, it's a school bus. Try to look through it. An easy way to look through it is by riding in the outside part of a lane if you're on the street, so that you can kind of see around the vehicle in front of you. Number 4, using your legs to grip the tank and using your core to help keep you upright. That will keep your arms from getting tired, and it will help hold you upright so that you're not putting so much weight in your arms and your wrists. Number 5, stay loose, stay relaxed. As soon as you tense up, riding gets a lot harder, and you end up putting extra inputs into the steering of your motorcycle that are just going to make the bike feel more unstable. It's not going to turn as quickly. It's not going to do what you want it to do as easily if you're super tense. So just loosen up, loosen your grip. One way that you can remember to keep your upper body loose is by flapping your arm like it's a chicken wing. You have your hands on the handlebar, and you just kind of flap your arm like you're a chicken. And number 6, sit on the seat. Put your weight on the seat. Use the seat to support weight. Your feet are on the foot pegs as a place to go, where the majority of your weight should be in the seat. So again, thank you for joining me today. I hope that you found some humor in my misfortunes and all of my rookie mistakes. If you are a new rider, I hope that this episode helps you avoid some of those mistakes, or at least gives you something to think about when you're riding so that you can practice some of these skills. Thank you everybody for being here. Stay tuned for the next episode.